some questions, and I'm sure that our dear viewers will be having some questions as well. So please do share your questions in the live chat. Till then, let's get started. Sure. So before we start, sir, can we understand the idea of healthy body? What is a healthy body?
So there are many layers to even the basic introduction of the topic that you've given. When we began Sundays with Arun, it was with an intent to look at what is normal. And over a long period of time, we have discussed normal from various angles. Today's topic is the lost art of recovery. And that essentially means that there is something called normal, and there is something which is not normal. Now, they have switched roles in the modern world. Uh, Being unwell or having a disease or having an illness um, seems to be norm, and we seem to be accepting that. हिंदी में कहते हैं कि हम आदी हो जाते हैं, आदत पड़ जाती है. It becomes a natural way to live, I would say exist, with pain, with suffering, with some kind of uneasiness, restlessness, and illness. Of course, these are all different words, and it can be very confusing at times because people who are on the street, just normal people, have they don't have a way of differentiating between illness and disease, for example, or between health, well-being, physical and mental fitness, and so on. But when you ask the question about normal or what is something that we can expect, then I tell my students, and in all my public talks, I speak about the idea that we should look at animals in a comparative sense to at least begin to have a locus to stand on, to think about what could be, what a human being could be. So you look at a dog, or you look at a cat, or you look at a monkey, or a tiger, or a horse, or an elephant, and you realize that in their habitat, in the world that they live in, they live a life which they are expected to live in a certain way. So a dog behaves like a dog. A monkey behaves like a monkey. I'm stating the obvious. But sometimes even stating fundamentals or talking something very simple can be quite profound. A cow eats grass. Don't ask me how the cow knows how to eat grass. You try to feed it some meat, the cow will not eat the meat. On the other hand, you try to feed a tiger with the grass. Forget about the grass, the tiger will eat you. Because the tiger knows that grass is not for her or him. The tiger eats you, tiger eats meat to exist. How come the cow knows that it should eat grass? And how the tiger knows how it should eat meat? Did they go to school? Did they go to college? Did they have some definition given by the World Health Organization? Did they sit in classrooms and learn about proteins and carbohydrates? Where does an elephant get its calcium from? So many bones. I don't think we have really thought about this in great detail as human beings. We haven't thought about the idea of an elephant and a lack of calcium and osteoporosis, for example. We also know that animals don't drink milk. Beyond the stage of weaning, animals don't drink milk. There are some fundamental things that we know about animals. It's the same with plants as well, but we're closer, I think, to animals than to plants. And there are many things, including the way they behave, not just the way they live, that could give us clues on how to be normal, or what it means to be normal. Not how to be normal, but what it means to be normal. We've had to have a lot of intensive study and research as to how long our intestines are, and what gut bacteria can do, and how our thyroid gland functions, for us to even decide whether we should eat oatmeal for breakfast or to have the adequate amount of protein powder or some collagen as supplements, or what things that we should drink and what things we should avoid. It's very confusing. And how much exercise we should get. I also speak to my students about this idea that exercise is an important part of daily life, is a myth when it comes to the animal world. You cannot find an elephant or a cow running 20 times around the football field, backwards and forwards, and increasing their cardiovascular rate or doing some aerobic exercise. I don't mean to mock many scientific advancements, but some simple things can be quite challenging to discuss, honestly. That where do animals get their quota of cardiovascular and aerobic exercise? I mean, where are the 10,000 steps that the animals are taking every day, apparently to survive? I mean, how is it that they survive without the kind of science that human beings have? The animals can hear better than human beings. They can taste better. They can smell better. And sometimes if we know dogs, and if we have dogs as pets, then they seem to be able to even feel better about things. Feel they have a greater, very high, acutely developed sense of feeling about things, which human beings sometimes don't have that capacity, or we have lost that capacity. When we talk about illness, health is not the opposite of illness or disease. Of course, these are words, and we can get lost in semantics. But being well, being healthy, is to be normal. And I submit to everyone that we don't know what it means to be just normal. हमारा दिनचर्या कैसे होना चाहिए? What should be our daily routine? How should we interact with the universe? How should our relationship with the community be? How should we take care of ourselves? You see a cat, it preens itself, it's constantly cleaning itself, a cat. And some animals hibernate a lot during winter. They don't do anything, they just sleep. And when they come back in springtime, they are many kilos lighter. They have stored body fat, which is used up in winter because they're hibernating and they're not eating anything, like a polar bear, for example. This is quite amazing. that the animals seem to know the law of the universe. The animals seem to know that they are daytime creatures. The animals seem to know that they are nighttime creatures. Like an owl will not be roaming around during daytime. And similarly, most animals that favor the sun, you will see them in the night, walking around, foraging, eating. They don't do that. One of the greatest gifts, apparently, that human beings got is to move from being cave dwellers with flames and fire to having the benefit of electricity and the light bulb. Thomas Alva Edison happened on us. So then suddenly sunlight is there in all our houses, 24 hours of the day. Like it's 5 o'clock in the evening on Sunday here in India, and darkness is slowly setting in. But we are in the middle of daytime because we have lots of lights, and the sun is not setting here.
Yeah.
Which really means that my biology needs to adapt to daylight even after sunset. I don't think we as human beings have understood this at all, that we seem to be living in a different kind of universe compared to animals, even though the planet is the same. But we have modified the rules of living. Now, things change on the planet through millions and billions of years of evolution. What has happened in 100 years? What has happened in 200 or 400 years in human history? What has happened, for example, in the last 20 years and maybe in the last 12 months? Evolution hasn't been able to catch up. We lost our tails maybe over 2 billion years of evolution. Who knows? But we have gone from being a biped, two-legged creature, to being a noped, sitting all the time, typing on the computer, sitting on the couch and watching television, driving cars, sitting in a flight, sitting on a railway compartment. We've lost the art of being a biped. And therefore, we've lost the art of recovery. Because we don't know that recovery is possible, the body doesn't understand that anymore. And we are forcing our bodies to work beyond the capacity that it can. You also mentioned in the opening remarks as to how disease has to be suppressed, and pain is something that cannot be, it's not useful. We have to make it go away as quickly as possible so that we don't lose any time. It's an irritant. It's very much avoidable. So in general, to answer your question right now, the important thing to understand is that we have lost the instinct, the natural instinct of who a human being is and who a human being can be. And therefore, we have lost the art of being in touch with ourselves, our body, our mind, and our spirit. This is not so for a tiger. A tiger will not behave like a cow. A cow will not start becoming a non-vegetarian. You see, this is it's extraordinary to think like that. However, human beings are morphing into anything that they feel like morphing into without realizing that just intellect or intelligence is not going to be able to change our biology. Our biology needs 1 billion years to change. It can't change in 40 years or even in 400 years. Our intestines and kidneys and the liver and the brain are meant to function the way they have evolved over a long period of time. So if we expect the body to work in a way that we want it to work, we need another 1 billion years. Or else we have to understand how the body behaves, what its core secrets are, how it can be in tune with the rules of the planet. And then we can start to discover an enormous amount of energy and power, which is currently missing for a lot of people.
So what I gather is that the state of normalcy. So if we deflect from that state of normalcy, there comes the, please correct me if I'm wrong, there comes the state where the body is affected by some disease or illness. As a byproduct, people complain of pain. So, is pain something that can be avoided or should be avoided? And a follow-up would be that can pain be a teacher as well?
So there are two parts to this question. One is about pain, and the other is about suffering.
Yeah.
And suffering also includes illness and disease, where there is no pain. And there are many illnesses where there is no pain, physical pain at least. So both the things are relevant. And the question is, can it be avoided? The answer is no. Common sense should tell us that pain, injury, sickness, and suffering cannot be avoided. But they can be mitigated, which means the impact of such suffering can be reduced. And at the same time, normalcy is possible, recovery is possible. Modern science keeps changing every few decades. And without getting into the deeper side of science, what was science 500 years ago was different 100 years ago. And the science that we have is different from what it was 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years ago. Which means that science is evolving all the time, and we're coming up with new ideas and new discoveries. And then the science that was science then becomes old science. So when we talk of pain, for example, there are any number of ways of managing pain in modern science, especially physical pain. And that's a great gift. But on the other hand, you can mitigate pain or reduce the onset of pain by having any number of habits that make sure that you don't have that pain or suffering coming to your life. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it's a wonderful line which I keep quoting. I've quoted this in Sundays with Arun earlier as well. Is Heyam Dukham Anagatam. The suffering that is yet to come can be avoided with the practice of yoga. For me, the practice of yoga is a coming home to yourself. You're coming home to yourself. That is the practice of yoga. Whether you're doing asana, meditation, satsang, kirtan, Surya Namaskar, Shavasana, you're doing Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Ultimately, the purpose of all practice of yoga is to rediscover yourself, to come back home to yourself. It's as simple as that. And Patanjali very profoundly says, out of his 196 sutras, for me, one of the most profound in that is Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. It directly answers your question. The suffering that is yet to come can be avoided with the practice of yoga. You can come back home to yourself, and that can mitigate or avoid the suffering that is yet to come. What does it mean? For me, the interpretation is like this: that if you have a certain set of habits that are going with the rules of the universe, with the rules of living and dying, then chances are, because you are within those rules, you can avoid many of the things that you otherwise may not be able to avoid. If you go out in the rain, you will get wet. You and I know that. And if you don't want to get wet, then you should not go out in the rain. But yet you go out in the rain and you get wet. And then you complain about the fact that you look, I'm suffering, I got wet. But then if you did not want to get wet, then the idea would be not to go out in the rain. It's very difficult to say, okay, don't have that sweet to yourself. But if you do have an ability to say no to that sweet, then maybe a moment on the lips, forever on the lips could be avoided. And the pain and suffering that comes from some weight that you put on with excessive eating could be avoided. How does a dog or a cow do in this arena? Very well. Because it knows when the stomach is full. It knows when it wants to say no. It has no reason to eat beyond what it needs to eat. So it is avoiding pain, it is avoiding suffering just by having an idea of what is enough, what is appropriate, what should be, rather than what our desire is fueling. So this happens a lot with human beings as well. We know what is appropriate, we know what is right, and many times we do take the right steps to avoid pain, and it does happen. With the practice of yoga, there is the other side as well, that if you do have pain, then the ability to withdraw, the ability to rest, the ability to be within the suffering and be with the suffering and be with the pain helps the person who's practicing yoga to recover far more quickly than somebody who doesn't have access to that kind of training, that kind of science, that kind of technology, that kind of input, that skill. When I fall ill or when I have pain, I've prided myself to say to my students, and it's like you asked, can you avoid? No, the answer is no, you can't avoid. Sometimes you have pain. There are things that happen, you injure yourself, or the weather is cold and you pull a muscle. Sometimes you accidentally you do something which injures you and there is pain. But I prided myself on this idea that I recover very quickly from an injury. And this is very practical for people who want to know, okay, look, I've injured my knee, I've injured my elbow, I've injured my back, I've injured my shoulder. Well, you should rest it. That is normal. Avoid all movement. No, but then I should exercise, otherwise my muscles will become weak. So if you were an animal, you wouldn't think about muscles becoming weak. The pain is the teacher. The pain is the bell. The pain is that alarm that we need to hear. The body is saying, this is the time that I need to put all my resources into the healing of that pain. Now, this is not theoretical, this is how it works. On the other hand, there are some injuries and there are some situations of pain which require assistance, even in the short term or in the long term. And there is always a path to recovery, there's always a path to rehabilitation. If you have an injured back, there are many practices in yoga which will help to put you back on your feet. But then you need to then have the patience and the time and the resourcefulness to find that path to recovery. The same thing happens with, let's say, an increased elevated blood cholesterol or hypertension or elevated blood sugar or a malfunctioning thyroid gland or an imbalanced hormonal system. All of this requires something very simple. To slow down, take adequate amount of rest, take the foot off the pedal, do some yogic practices or any other healing practices that you're aware of. Put the process in place consistently over a period of time, be patient, and then eventually you'll start noticing that the body has recovered from the issue that it has been facing. One of the problems with pain is that it is a teacher, but sometimes it's a negative teacher. I don't welcome pain for myself or my students, but I believe that pain is a very good teacher because at that time it keeps you open to learning. It gives you the access to understand things which otherwise would escape your attention. The simple thing, you injured your wrist. Suddenly you realize how important the wrist is. You can't move the wrist anymore. We've gone through that. All of us go through that kind of, some kind of pain which immobilizes you somewhere. Some small thing. Let's say you injured your small finger. You suddenly realize how important that small finger is. You seem to use it 50 times a day, but you never realize it. Only when you're injured, you suddenly realize how valuable that is. So if you can learn that from the pain, then you can avoid pain more than normally. And B, you start to then pay attention to the pain and help you to recover from it faster. You'll be able to just kind of be able to do things with that pain that will help you to recover. I'm kind of change the. Yeah.
So, would it be safe to say that changing the relationship with pain will change the healing outcomes as well?
Well, it's hypothetical for me. It's more, I think, a Western method, but distracting the mind and giving the mind other things to do from a yogic perspective is a good thing. It doesn't necessarily promote healing. It just makes the mind occupy itself with other matters. On the other hand, a lot of issues that we face, whether it's pain or illness, has to do with our mind. And keeping the mind occupied in a certain way can maybe help to dissolve the symptoms that are coming up because of the mischievous activity of the mind. So, yes, by diverting your attention, it is possible, or keeping your mind occupied, or changing your perspective can help. But no amount of talking about the pain and trying to say that I don't have pain, from a yogic perspective, will work. It is more important from a yogic perspective to accept. Having acceptance, जैसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं, समझौता होना बड़ा जरूरी है. It's very important to have an acceptance of whatever pain we have, physical, mental, emotional, social pain. Once we have an acceptance when we are in it, then a resolution will emerge automatically without making an effort. That's how the yogic science works.
So, before we move ahead, I would like to remind our viewers, please, if you have any questions, do drop them in the live chat.
Yes, and I also want to say that Sundays with Arun, currently we're doing 1 hour instead of 1.5 hours. So it's a 60-minute format currently. And yeah, do share some of your views, and you can also just have an interaction. You don't need to have questions. You can always chat. Yes.
So moving on.
Yes.
So I've heard this idea that body has a inner doctor. So since we are talking about the body's natural capacity to heal itself.
Yeah.
So let us talk about self-healing or
Yes.
healing in the body.
So I'm not very adept with the medical side of things, but I do know that with the practice of yoga, that's a practice, very simple practice of asana and pranayama, the body develops, or I should say, redevelops its ability on an ongoing basis to heal itself. The muscles become stronger and leaner. The body gets toned. The physical body balance between um, fat and muscle becomes more and more clear. The endocrine system starts to harmonize and balance itself. The nervous system becomes stronger and more able. The brain starts to function more clearly. The digestive system starts working better and better. All of this happens with a simple practice of yoga, asana and pranayama. Many people, within the first few weeks of starting yoga, start to see remarkable changes. They start to see a transformation in what's happening. Um, in North India, they say सारी बीमारियां पेट से शुरू होती हैं. They say that all our illnesses start from the stomach. There is a growing agreement in the scientific world about this, that better your gut health, better your brain health, better your gut health, better your brain health, better your overall health. It's a very interesting thing that more and more people scientifically are concentrating on our ability to digest food and to assimilate and to utilize the nutrition rather than the input. It's what is already inputted, the body's ability to utilize it. In that sense, when we practice asanas, the core area, the digestive system, whether it is the stomach, the liver, the small and large intestine, the spleen, the gallbladder, they all start functioning more efficiently. And many times I've known people in their 40s and 50s to have an ability of digestion which is equal to a 20-year-old at their peak. People who are practicing sport, that kind of digestive ability for somebody who practices asana regularly. And we say in our classes, things like Paschimottanasana, things, the practice of Paschimottanasana, or the practice of the backward bends lying on the abdomen, which is Bhujangasana, Shalabhasana, Dhanurasana, also the spinal twist, Ardha Matsyendrasana, the Surya Namaskar, Kapalabhati, all of this are focusing on the digestive system. The other very interesting routine that we have in yoga is the focus on breathing. And interestingly, when we talk about breathing, we have to talk about lungs, and we have to talk about oxygen, and we have to talk about burn, and burn means energy. So the more the oxygen that there is in the human body system, there is more energy. And every good practice of asana and pranayama always begins, continues, and ends with a focus on good breathing, proper breathing. So when we're talking about breathing, we're talking about oxygen, we're talking about high energy. And when we're talking about high energy, we're talking about no disease, no illness, no restlessness, no dissonance. So what happens with the practice of asana and pranayama is that you're directly impacting the human system from the head to the foot. We cover this. We complete the human surgery, the astral surgery, with the practice of relaxation, shavasana. So critical that I say that when a surgery is performed, the doctor has to sew up the stitches, put the stitches, otherwise your organs will be hanging out when you run out of the operating theatre. The same way, shavasana completes the treatment of the human body, which started with the practice of asana and pranayama, and now you have shavasana, which is in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, the practice of relaxation, which calms the nervous system, calms the hormonal glands, calms down the endocrine system, slows down the breathing apparatus, the work of the heart. It brings down elevated blood pressure levels and brings the body to what is called homeostasis. The wonderful thing to do. Just these three practices put together, the practice of asana and pranayama, and the practice of relaxation bring you back to a certain kind of balance and harmony that the body was uh, supremely capable of when we were babies. So the lost art of healing, the lost art of recovery is also the lost art of being ourselves. Like we were when we were babies. We were extremely spontaneous, instinctive. When we were hungry, we cried. When we were happy, we laughed. When we were sleepy, we slept. But as adults, we can't laugh when we have to laugh. We can't cry when we have to cry. We can't sleep when we want to sleep. We can't sit down when we have to rest. We can't. We seem to have lost that art. And then what is happening is we become dependent on the crutches that we call advancement of science. That okay, if I have more collagen, or if I have more protein shakes, or if I have a different kind of diet, I should be vegan, or I should have more eggs, then I will be normal and I will feel normal. The yogic perspective is different. The yogic perspective says what is normal is what you need to practice. And the art of recovery is, for example, rest and repair by itself. And to correlate your question with what is really recovery, when you break a bone, the doctor puts a cast on the broken area, and then 6 weeks later, all things being supported, when the cast is removed by the doctor, the bone has healed. We haven't done anything special in terms of exercise or diet for the bone to heal. The bone recovers by itself. The broken bone recovers by itself. My grandmother was 89 or 90 when she broke her femur, the largest bone in the human body, the thigh bone. And her thigh bone also recovered at the age of 89 or 90 in 6 weeks' time. That gives me an idea, that gives us an idea that more or less through our entire lifespan, the recovery happens if we give the right kind of situation, the right kind of time, and the right kind of consistency. If I cut my face while shaving in the morning, I can be sure that in 24 hours' time, the skin will heal. Sorry. If I'm chopping vegetables and I cut my finger slightly accidentally, then I know that if I wrap a little bit of plaster around my finger, make sure that no soap and water and dirt get into the wounded area, then more or less in 24 hours or 48 hours, the skin will cover the wound and I will have new skin on that cut area. I don't have to do any mantra chanting. I don't have to do any meditation techniques. I don't have to go to various destinations to figure out how to heal the skin. This happens normally. This is what the body is supposed to do. It repairs itself. The same thing if you're having an upset stomach. Hundreds of times we know that if you just simply skip a meal, as simple as skipping a meal, you feel like a million rupees the next day. That's all you need to do, just skip a meal. You don't need to take antacids, you don't need to take medicines, you don't have to take some probiotics or prebiotics, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to take any antibiotics. Just an upset stomach, don't eat a meal, just skip a meal. And I know, we all know that it really helps. That's what animals do. But then animals continuously are instinctively listening to the upset. We ignore the upset, the physical upset, the emotional upset, the intellectual upset, the restlessness. We ignore all of this, all these signals, because the instinct is being overpowered by intelligence. That no, Monday is coming, Friday is coming, I have this deadline, I have that deadline. No, I am wanting to go out and have Chinese food today or Japanese food today. So the desire is overpowering, the intelligence is overpowering instinct. And then healing is not possible where you've broken the bone, but you've not put a cast and you're constantly using the arm, you are going to be in trouble. My finger is cut and I'm putting the finger in the mud, putting soap on the finger, putting water on the finger, exposing the finger to all kinds of things. You cannot expect the finger to heal.
Yeah.
If you're wise, you cover the finger, you put a cast on the broken bone, and then soon you will repair. You will recover.
So we have a question by Prasad Panikar, 7053. He or she is asking, how can we go step by step to remove guilt and fear of self-imposed discipline lapse of some days? How to get rid of fear to approach, face, and solve problems in life?
It's a little bit out of syllabus, isn't it? That we're talking about guilt. Can you just slow down the question a little bit and break it down a little bit? And I'll address it from the syllabus that we are in today.
So,
first part of the question, how can we
go step by step to remove guilt and fear of self-imposed discipline lapse of some days?
The question is that there is a lapse of discipline.
Yeah.
And how can we avoid the guilt associated with that? And
then how to get rid of fear to approach, face, and solve problems in life?
So for both these questions, the answer is very simple. You have to ask yourself a question. The answer is very simple. You have to ask yourself a question. What is it that I'm losing by breaking the discipline? What is the cost? For every action that you and I take, which is not natural, which is not following a certain set of rules and regulations, you pay a price. There is a cost. There is a karmic law. So every time you have that extra piece of chocolate, every time you have that extra helping, every time you don't get up to exercise, every time, so I know that I'm sounding a little contradictory, but that's how the conversation is. Subject to conversation is contradictory at many times. It's ironical. Sometimes we find it very difficult to comprehend that conversation can be this and that at the same time. It's quantum. So I mentioned that exercise is not vital to living in life. I explained that in the context of a cow and an elephant and even a tiger and even the dog that we have, which is sleeping across the street the whole day. But if you know that exercise is good for you and if you know that eating less is good for you, then you have to think about the price you're paying by breaking that rule that you've set for yourself. There is a price. Everything has a cost. Nothing comes without a price. And sometimes I've known my students to not realize this until they're in hospital, until they're so unwell that they need help with diet and exercise, like professional help. And no animal is going through that situation. When we use the word discipline, I like to think of the word disciple, which is the key word, the root word of discipline, disciple. Disciple means being in the presence of the rules of the universe. You can call it guru, you can call it mentor, teacher, you can call it a realization of the absolute within which you are operating as a human being, a disciple of life. So discipline is not something like being in the army or something unbreakable or unshakable. You create a system for yourself which is workable. If you're a morning person, you do whatever you do in the morning. If you're an evening person, you finish doing whatever you want to do in the evening. But at the same time, you want to kind of consider the circadian rhythm. You want to consider that we are creatures of the sun. So whatever activities we have, we follow the sunrise to sunset kind of daily routine. And we don't impose things that on ourselves that are a burden. In my class, whenever I'm teaching, I always use the words do not struggle. Do not struggle is a very important sentence in our life. Do not struggle. I don't mean struggle like we should not struggle with great problems or make purushart, make effort. It's a way of looking at things. That do not struggle means you can only do so much today. So don't struggle within that, mentally and emotionally and physically. Like if you cannot catch hold of your toes in the sitting forward bend, you catch your ankles. Don't struggle with trying to catch your toes. Then you're not enjoying what you're doing currently. So breaking discipline is something which is not outside of you. Discipline is something which you create for yourself. It's your rule, it's your regulation. And if you follow instinct and if you follow the general rules of the universe, then it's very simple. It's a set of things that you created for yourself within your own comfort zone, which can keep you going day after day. In the weight loss program, very early on, in the yoga based weight loss program, very early on, I realized that people who are overweight don't have much motivation. That's why they get overweight in the beginning and then they continue to gain weight because they don't have the motivation to lose it. If they had the motivation, then they wouldn't be overweight. You see? So, what I figured out in the early days of teaching the program is that I must keep things simple for discipline. So, when that question comes up about discipline and guilt, I understand what the question is. But you must also understand what is it that you're about to lose, what is the cost, and try to keep it simple. You don't have to create some extraordinary kind of benchmarks or landmarks for yourself. Just having a 15 minutes walking routine twice a day is achievable for most people on the planet. 15 minutes. You've done 30 minutes of walking. That's like 3,500 steps. It's contradictory to what I said earlier about 10,000 steps. No animal is doing it. But just staying with the conversation here, it's very interesting to know that just 15 minutes a day, twice a day, and you have made some progress. If you have an earlier dinner from the time that you're having before, let's say you're eating dinner at 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the evening, and you pull it back by an hour, that's a big achievement. You don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and join the 5 a.m. club. It's not needed. You can do some very small, simple, practical things which have profound impact on your daily life. From eating a certain kind of diet, if you avoid a few things, let's say lots of masala and lots of salt. If you reduce salt in the diet and if you reduce lots of spices and curry and condiments, then it's possible that you're immediately improving the state of body and mind. If you can reduce from 2 tablespoons of oil or fat to 1 teaspoon of oil for cooking, instantly you will have some very major results happening to your body. Discipline may be a very difficult word to grapple with. So we should not look at a problem from discipline or guilt point of view. We should be able to look at life as to what is achievable and doable on a daily basis and not come up with reasons for it. A little bit can make a lot of difference. Doing a 30 minutes yoga class is better than waiting for a time when you can do a 90 minutes class every day. Better to do yoga for busy people on our channel, the 35 minutes video, than to avoid the whole issue of practicing asana and pranayama altogether. For me, showing up for 3 days a week on a yoga mat is better than trying to do this 7 times a week. 3 times may be more achievable for you with family, with work commitments, with many other errands to run, with many things, responsibilities. Maybe 3 times is very good. Just 3 times a week can make a lot of difference. So take the pressure off you to just get into a routine which is simple to maintain, irrespective of the situation and circumstances. Early dinner, walk after dinner, and sipping of hot water through the day can generally change your entire physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Just that much could do a world of difference.
So before we wrap up,
Already? Wrap
We're
up?
moving
Okay.
closer to 6.
Yes.
There's one really interesting question that I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Sometimes we do heal. Disease or illness comes out of our body, but the distress, the pain still stays with us.
Yes.
How to deal with that?
Well, give it time. And an idle mind collects a lot of moss. Better would be to keep yourself occupied and be in the business of living, live in the present. All of these are very much taught, but also experienced when you practice yoga. If you practice some pranayama, if you practice some meditation, if you practice some asanas, catharsis will come. Catharsis means a dissolution of the past. There are two things in the past. One is what happened, and the other is what you say, what happened. The story that you create about what happened. And there is the fear and unhappiness and revulsion associated with that time. I was in hospital for 11 days. Till the end of my days, I will constantly worry that I should not go back to hospital again. You see? But I've known every time I've had an emotional injury like this, by being on a yoga mat, the water boils, it becomes steam, and then it becomes clouds, and then it precipitates. And the pain is gone, and the suffering is gone, and the past is gone. And I can laugh again. And I'm back home again to myself. I'm back to my spontaneous, energetic, happy, jovial self again. It's not an ordinary thing to practice yoga. It's one of the most profound times when you can be with yourself and you can shed your skin like a snake sheds its skin. Every single yoga class that I practice, I'm doing some spring cleaning. Every single class that I practice yoga, I lie down on the mat, I sit up, the teacher is teaching, and I'm of course drifting here and there, physically, emotionally, mentally. The shake-up is happening. Biologically, many things are happening inside my body. The lymphatic system is moving. All that stuff is happening. All my 8 or 10 or 12 biological systems are starting to work in harmony. But most essentially, most importantly, I'm beginning to lose the past. I highly recommend it to everyone who listens to this conversation. I also recommend it to everyone who has even the slightest doubt or lack of faith, or skepticism, that you practice yoga not for exercise. You just practice yoga for this one very important reason, that you want to rediscover yourself. You want to not be lost in the unhappiness of the past. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it was, like you injured yourself, now you have a fear of injury, or you had a situation with a relationship, or you've had major problems of money and stuff like that in the past, but now you're okay. But the stuff lingers on. I promise you, a regular practice of yoga on the mat, asana and pranayama, very soothing, gentle chill in the class. I'm not saying one form of yoga or the other, but some form, specific form of yoga, which has breathing, relaxation, and exercise, will liberate you from the trammels of the past. It will bring you back to freedom. And it's appropriate that tomorrow is India's Republic Day, and it's one of the times that we can look at laying down the rules and approving the constitution of life. We should rewrite the constitution and start using that all over again. And you'll find that yoga is that constitution which will help us to constantly be on track and make us remain in a domain of happiness. Yeah, so um, nothing of the past will be erased. It's always there in memory, but you can be free for sure. And that is with the practices. Any number of practices are there, from the cleansing practices, the kriyas, Prataka, Jalneti, Kapalabhati, Agnisar, and so on. Any number of kriyas, meditation, dhyana, pranayama, Surya Namaskar. 21 rounds of Surya Namaskar can beat uh, the disgusting stuff that is troubling us out of our system completely. 54 rounds on a daily basis for a few weeks, and nothing which is unhappy will remain. You'll feel free and light like a bird. Yeah, we have wonderful technology.
Yeah.
From thousands of years ago. Natural intelligence, not artificial.
We have few observations.
Yes.
We have Shubhraj. They're
Yes,
saying,
Shubhraj.
the cost of indiscipline, how beautifully put, Arun.
Thank you.
We have Prasad again. Thank you so much. Keep life simple without struggle.
Yes.
Ask myself the cost of lapse in routine to set back on track.
That's right.
Start small and see the big changes in life.
That's right. Very good. Yes. Thank you for appreciating the salient points. Very good. Yes.
We also have Neemu. They are also convinced and they're appreciating that. Great. I'm really convinced.
Thank you. Yes. On that happy note, we can slowly come to the conclusion of Sundays with Arun. It's my hope that many of us join this conversation, and it can be a growing conversation with many of us being connected. Sundays with Arun is a satsang, a place where we can express, inquire, discuss things that otherwise we have no place for. What that means is that we don't have a school or a college to discuss matters of life, and we don't have a safe forum or a safe place where we can engage with questions that Nihit has asked today about the art of recovery, or the art of good health, or the art of living, so to say. And there is also no method anywhere around in the world where we can really find a way, which is to be human, to be healthy, to be well. There is no formal method. So Sundays with Arun is that, maybe that link that I would like to use for all of us to be connected in a very certain, very beautiful way, to find some very good answers, but also to have a dialogue which will help us to relax, to help us to be free, and to help us find more meaning and purpose in the matters of living in life. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Guru Maharaj ki jai. Hari Om Tat Sat. So wonderful to have you here today. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you soon. Om Tat Sat.